Hi, I'd like to welcome you to episode 9 of Facing Mortality, Eliminate Stress. I'd put this in the category of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Stress is a silent killer. I think we underestimate the amount of stress that we have in our lives and the impact of that stress. To put things into an interesting perspective, if you think about salmon, what happens to them when they swim upstream, when they go against the flow? They lay their eggs and they die. Now you might be thinking that that's extreme, but what I'm about to tell you, with what I've found out on my own journey, you may hopefully reconsider the amount of stress, if you have it in your life, to remove it or to eliminate as much as possibly can. I understand we can't actually remove it, so I'm not sure why I said that, but we can change our approach to it, and we can actually probably remove some of it. So what is stress? Stress is basically when something happens to us that puts us in danger. We go into a fight or flight response. Now that fight or flight response was used, I'm aware from back, or not aware, that fight or flight response comes from the early caveman days, where we were frightened for our lives. And so we would go into a fight or flight, tension in our body, but it was hopefully a temporary situation. In fact, I guess if you were to look at something more modern day, you could think of the COVID as a similar situation of a fight or flight response, and that went on for quite some time. So this fight or flight response that we have in our body is basically creating inflammation in our body, and we know inflammation is not a good thing. In fact, it's inflammation that allows disease to settle in. Because the body is in a weakened state, all systems are to protect yourself from, your body goes into such a reaction to protect itself from dangers that nothing else matters. So for example, if you're eating the food that you are digesting just doesn't get digested. Everything just goes into a panic mode within your body. Now, a lot of us might take turmeric for that, thinking that that will help us because it'll remove the inflammation from your body. Well, yes, turmeric is an anti-inflammatory, and I would recommend that you do probably have it, along with trying to remove stress. So can you see that? There are two types of stress: distress and eustress. Eustress is the good stress. It's where we do go into an elevated mode, but it's in our own interests that we do. Whereas distress is an extension of stress. Now, we all have loads of forms of stress in our lives. We can have financial stress, where we're trying to make ends meet from week to week. We can have stress in terms that we haven't got a job, and we've been searching for so long that we're just not sure if we're going to get another one. We could have a loved one die. We could be selling our house, getting a mortgage. There are all sorts of stress, and all those stresses are accumulative. But then if you're in a situation where you're at home and you have a stressful environment, and you've got a job and it's a stressful environment, then your body is in this elevated form of fight or flight permanently. So how do I know that stress is basically another nail in the coffin? Well, when I was getting my blood tests, I had a very interesting situation where I had this person visit me, and every time he visited me, my blood tests for the cancer marker would go up significantly. Now, after another fortnight, they would come down, but never back to where they were, because the cancer marker was increasing anyway, but it was increasing really slowly. And what I noticed was when this person visited and would stay, that the marker would go, as I said, the marker would go up significantly. And it happened every time. Now, when this person's partner came and also stayed, what I noticed was I was told not to rock the boat. Now, I found that really interesting because as a patient of cancer, you know, everyone knows, or most people know, that stress is not a good thing to have. And I've just told you why. Because it does increase the inflammation in the body. And the cortisol was basically increasing in my body and putting the cancer marker up. I verified this with a nurse who said, yes, that's right, and that you need to keep the stress as much as possible out of your life. So when I questioned the situation, I was basically told to, you know, let sleeping dogs lie. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, I'm the patient. I'm the one who's trying to extend my life at the moment by doing as much as I can the right way. Obviously, I'm human and I'm going to make mistakes. Yes, I'm talking about that candy or whatever. But to be told how to behave in my own house when it wasn't a big ask. And it's like, you know, you've come to help me out, and then I'm being told to watch myself. And I'm thinking, I'd just rather not have these people in my house. And I've watched situations of stress in other ways too. So I watched my mother, who was, you know, as I said, in her early 80s, trying to cope with a daughter who's being diagnosed to die, or prognosis of death. And she was taking me everywhere, and she wanted to do so much for me, and yet my father's health isn't that great either. So here she is trying to manage his health as well as look after me and myself. And it got to the point where I didn't want her help. And I didn't want her help because I could see what it was doing to her. She was trying to cope, and good on her for wanting to help. But, you know, we think we cope with these situations, but it's time that shows whether we have coped with these situations. And, you know, time has gone by, and when you see people starting to become ill, that's an accumulation of something typically. And yes, it could be bad lifestyle, like, you know, loads of alcohol, for example, or whatever. But it can also be a factor of stress. You know, I have to wonder that we think we cope with stress, but I have had stress most of my life. And even when it's been my own doing, like worry or fear, or not even saying no, you know, I'm putting my body in that elevated situation. And you think you get away from it, and you think you recover. And when you're young, you do, because your body is still able to bounce back. But the older you get, it can't. It really can't bounce back like it did unless you are super healthy. Things are going to start taking their toll. I remember going to this alternative treatment, which I'll tell you about in another video. And that alternative treatment, we always used to sit and talk because it would last for a few hours every day of the week, or Monday to Thursday. And I remember that there was this guy there who had his son staying with him and granddaughter. And I remember him complaining about the stress in his life, and the stress was that the son was living with him, with the grandchild, and the situation was stressful. You know, there was always a mess everywhere, there was noise, there was no peace and quiet, any of that stuff. And that made it really hard for the body to rest. So I don't know if you remember, but my time out video, we need, you know, as much as we need fun and activity in our lives, we need time out. If we don't get that time out, it creates stress in our body, because the body is trying to push itself beyond what it is capable of in its diseased state. And that's where it gets harder for me too, because I still look good. I must admit, I do look very, very slim. You can't see that from here, but yes, the cancer has done a great job at slimming down this body. Not so toned, but yes. So, you know, this cancer has a field day with stress. It does. It just, you know, it's just like feeding it sugar. You feed it stress, and you know, when the body's in a relaxed state, it can rejuvenate. But when it's not able to get that rest, so therefore when it's not able to rejuvenate, then the cancer can take over, because there's nothing holding it back. In thinking about this video, it sort of got me to the conclusion that if you want to kill someone slowly, just keep their environment really stressful. Now, I know when I thought of that, it was as a joke, but I actually think it's quite serious, because I've seen the cancer markers on my own results 3 or 4 times go up significantly. And when people, I guess, when people try to help, like it was the situation that put the cancer marker up, I wish that person would have taken a step back and thought about me. Just because I'm sick, because there's a disease in this body, doesn't mean to say I can't think. And for people to come in and try and take over my environment with no respect that I'm still here. I'm still functioning. I might not be functioning to 100% anymore, but I'm still functioning. So give me that, because I don't know how long I've got that for. I really don't know how long I've got that for. And I've watched other people die, and when I listen at this person, you know, they were going to die of cancer anyway, but their markers were going up big time. And they so desperately wanted the stress out of their lives. And I think I've stuffed up the video here, haven't I? Because I feel I've gone off topic. Okay, I paused the video. I'm calm again. What I was trying to say was, I guess in that scenario, you know, I do need rest. I need interaction. I need rest. But I'm still here, and I don't need stress. None of us need stress. There is enough stress in our lives that we don't need to add to it, really. You know, in terms of a good part of this story, at my last place of work, my boss reached out to me financially. And I cried. Because going through cancer and all the crap that goes with it is hard enough without worrying about finances as well. And he helped me financially, and I broke down into tears, and I said, I don't know how, you know? And he said, pass it on. And so I did. When I was in situations that I could help someone else, I did. I couldn't help them great because I was paying for this alternative treatment, which cost a lot of money. But he said to pass it on. So how do we remove stress? Well, in my situation, I think I've made it clear that I can't have that person around me too much, because I'm not ready to try and cope with that sort of stuff. Now, I had a friend who said to me, you've got to let go stuff, you know, let go, let God. He said, you know, things, this is another person who survived cancer, and he said to me, you've got to, things that used to annoy you, you can't let them annoy you anymore. You've got to let them go. They're not worth it. And he was right. It took me a while to learn that. And I do get trapped at times as well. I just don't think that scenario I told you about was one of those traps. But you've got to look at a situation and ask yourself, is it really worth being right? Is it worth getting things done right for the amount of stress? So I guess what I'm trying to show you here right now is a dilemma of it all. And the dilemma is, should I have let that situation go? I've let a lot of situations go, and I haven't, to my detriment. But now I walk away from a lot of stuff that just annoys me because I have to. I don't want to put more nails in my coffin than are currently going in it. And I think I don't have to be right, but I don't have to be around it either. I don't have to be around stressful situations. I can walk away from them. You know, it goes back to those episodes, doesn't it, that I created, you know, acceptance and surrender. Be happy. Being of service. I'm sorry, I should have paused that. You know, when people are in pain, it's really hard to stay normal. It's really hard to not react. And if you're one of the people who aren't in pain, physically, mentally, whatever, then I think the bigger and better thing to do is to just swallow your pride when I'm in real pain, like when the morphine doesn't work because I've let the pain get started and I haven't got to it in time, it's really hard to be pleasant. It's really hard to be happy, happy, joy, joy. But I try. And now as I said, I just try and walk away when I'm in a situation that is going to challenge me, because I can live with myself like that. But I can't live with myself if I fight back in anger. Well, this episode took a bit of a turn. I don't know if there have been people sharing my videos, but if you have been sharing them, I thank you. I had quite a few new subscribers overnight, and it was cool to see. So I shall sign off here. Remember, if you did like it, to like it, the video. If you haven't subscribed and you want to be notified of new videos, please do. And yeah, I don't know if I'm going to post this video. If I do, there you go. I thank you for your time today.